I joined the military in 1950 in October. Friday, the 13th of October, I quit teaching school. My principal told my students, "You can chew gum in class." I said, "No, you can't chew gum." "Yes, you can." So I resigned my job as a teacher. And I said, and then the women were called to go, "We're going to send some women to Vietnam." Hey, you know.
I remember my very first visit because it was my birthday in 1969. The crew brought me a bottle of champagne to celebrate my birthday.
When I left the States, I had on my dress uniform, I had on high heels. That was the way I was told that I was to go. And so I got off the plane, and there's holes in all that grating, and I'm having to tiptoe. You know, the firefighter's still going on, and I can hear trucks and stuff running around, and the artillery going off, and I thought, what the hell am I doing here?
They picked all these women to send them to Vietnam, and I didn't go. They didn't. How dare you not choose me? But then I think 6 months later, I got assigned to Vietnam. I became an intelligence analyst.
Air medical evacuation.
The Navy was actively recruiting medical technologists. First lieutenant.
Second lieutenant.
I was a Spec 7 at that time, and there were only 22 of us in the entire military, period. End of report.
Oh, female didn't have much power when it came to anything. There was a lot of chauvinistic stuff going on in the States. When I get into that situation, flight nurses were considered the commanders. They were above the pilots. Whatever the flight nurses said, the pilots did. That was it.
What aircraft were you flying in?
The C-118s, the C-130s, helicopters, everything that would fly.
Everything that would fly.
I'm on a ship floating around. If somebody shoots us and puts a hole in that and we sink, am I going to be able to survive?
We used to sleep in our clothes because at night, when the night came in, we'd have a lot of incoming mortars. And you never knew where they were going to land, so you had to be ready to run somewhere.
I got called to go to the bunker, well, several times, but incoming, and I was so tired, I stayed in bed. My commanding officer had to come in and get me out of the bunk. I didn't take my flak jacket, but I didn't forget my bottle of Crown Royal and my cigarettes. You crazy? No, we worked from 6 to 6.
From forever till forever. We did what they call port and starboard watches, which is 12 on, 12 off.
And sometimes when hit the fan, gosh, I'm getting good. I've worked 22 hours, gone home and laid down at my bunk and got a couple hours sleep and gone back.
Our mission in the 902nd was to support the 901st in Vietnam. We get a lot of TDY over there, plus we had 3 missions a week into Vietnam.
When I got there and found out, we've got such a limited staff, and they've got to be doing everything. They have to be doing blood bank, they have to be doing chemistry, they have to be doing hematology.
We didn't have any doctors on our flights, and so we had to make all the decisions. So it was could be very stressful at times. Usually 2 of us. We had probably might have 50 patients. I don't know.
I think the highest number I ever remember us having on board was 350.
When I got on the plane finally going to Vietnam, I was reading and I had the whole order of battle for Vietnam. We knew where all the American troops were, all the Allied troops were. Wow. So if I know it reading the newspapers, the enemy had to know. And that's when I predicted we're going to be attacked by 50,000 Chinese. And the reason I put 50,000 Chinese, I wasn't there long enough to know that there was such thing as a big NVA, North Vietnamese Army.
We're hearing the rumors about the Tet Offensive is coming, and it's going to be a really bad thing. And, how are we going to, logistically, how are we going to keep supplies on board? How are we going to keep our blood supply up? I said to him, well, some of the places are using the blood longer, because at that time the expiration date was 21 days. What they're doing is they're using the blood for another 7 days. Thank God, because during the Tet Offensive, we had a limited number of units of blood because we could only get supplies so fast, and we sometimes cross-matched the same unit of blood on 2 or 3 people. So It was, it was kind of hairy, I guess is what we would say now.
Typical mission, we usually went over there empty from the Philippines, and we got into Vietnam. We started up in Da Nang, and we came down Nha Trang, Pleiku, Chu Lai, Vung Tau, and ended up at Cam Ranh Bay.
My job was to count the patients as they came in. I would see if there were some that were severely wounded that were going to have surgery right away. I then would go down to, after we got everybody on, then I'd go down to the lab and tell the guys, okay, we're going to have this many surgeries.
Some we pick up, we leave off in 2 stops or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes they would just stop, there was a battle, we had to go pick them up.
If there was a firefight, or if there was a battle going on in a certain area, then we pretty much just stayed in that area. We never anchored. I mean, we were there, and the sanctuary was also there for part of the time. They had gone to the Philippines because we had to get rid of patients. We knew if TET was coming, we had to be as empty as we could be. And TET started before they could get back online.
But I called it 30 days ahead of time. And I said, you better watch out because this is going to happen. And they didn't do it. So I felt like, excuse me.
And we were getting so many patients at a time that we couldn't stop.
Maybe 20,000 people on that wall in Washington, D.C., because they didn't listen. And the reason I think they didn't listen, I still believe it today. Black, whack, intelligence, spec 7, and enlisted. But if I'd been a man, they would have listened.
We got to the point where the pathologist said, we're going to try direct transfusion. And I said to him, oh my God. You know, I said, that's like old world medicine. And he said, I don't know of any other way. They hooked 2 needles with syringes on them and a piece of tubing in between, about this long. I mean, as close as they could get the 2 patients. We got the patient through that crisis. And so we knew that he got as far as Camp Zama, Japan, but we heard that he died there later. You know, you didn't really know them, but they were your patients, and you just tried as hard as you could to save them. And sometimes you couldn't.
The following year, my intelligence analysis said to me, we have some activity around our perimeter. I reported that we were going to have, there was some 122 millimeter rockets around our perimeter, and they were going to do another TET offensive on us. I got permission then to go to the 2 field force. Somebody else came up and said, well, where'd you get this information? I said, I'm an intelligence analyst. And somebody else came up and said, this is not, we can't do anything. And I stood there and it hurt my feelings so badly because I cried. And you cry, and it hurt me to cry in front of men. So I stuck with it, and they dismissed me. A couple of days later, they put out some dust to fire, and they got 4 secondary explosions. 2 days later, they put out some more dust, some more, and they got 117 secondary explosions up to 100 feet high. And all I could do, I went out, I got up on top of one of those bunkers, and I stood up there, and I cried, and I laughed, and I was so happy. Even when they didn't believe me, I believed me.
There's a statue in Washington, D.C. It's the Women's Memorial. There's a nurse that is behind everybody else by herself. And that's how I sort of felt over there, kind of isolated.
Some days were not good, you know, and I had a couple of days when I walked in and my roommate started saying something. I said, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm just crawling up in my bunk, and, you know, that's it.
So then I got over to the first log. They came in and says, well, what's going to happen down the road? I said, not to take this convoy up to Song Bay. They got no troops up. They took the convoy up to Song Bay. They lost 5 flatbeds. They lost 5 KIA and 17 wounded.
I'm looking down at this tattered heap of humanity is the only way I can explain it. A fella, I think he was a Marine, that didn't have any legs, maybe one arm, and he still had his eyesight, but he had more spirit in his eyes than I've ever seen in any human being. And that's, I'm sorry. That's when I decided to devote the rest of my life taking care of veterans.
I was saving lives through my intelligence.
You were doing your job. You were taking care of the other military people, and that was the important part.
I wasn't thinking about myself. I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to taking care of these veterans that were wounded over there, which I ended up doing.
Which you did.
I put more time taking care of people than really worrying about myself.
Did you have difficulty readjusting to life after the war?
Some people might think so, but I didn't.
I don't think I realized how much it affected me until my son was about 13, 14 years old. I was afraid to let him do anything. It wasn't till he was like probably 22 or 23 years old, I said, you know what, I've just discovered that the reason that I held on to him so tightly was because of all the young guys I saw die. If I don't watch after him, if I'm not more careful, I'll lose him like they did.
It was really hard for me to keep intimate relationships. And a lot of that was because of the isolation in my life and, you know, in the service. I'm happier being by myself.
People ask me, say, well, do you think women should be able to go to war? So what are you talking about? We've always been there, we're still there.
There are going to be blocks in your way because you're a woman, and you can't let that stop you. And besides that, I was there first, and that's why you can be where you are today.
You don't have to love me and like me, but you have to realize that this country, without me, is nothing.